it wasn't the fact that he just lost his mom and his dad in such a short period of time, but also the gravity of the responsibility and the weight of this family, the weight of the monarchy is on him.
Well, Elaine, it's so good to see you as always. And, obviously this week was a monumental, historic event with the Queen's funeral, but we're also have to be reminded that this is a family also grieving and grieving in public. So what is it like to grieve with billions of people watching, and how do you think they navigated that?
I cannot even imagine what it may have felt like, but I believe that this family handled grieving in public with billions of people watching in a graceful manner. I mean, everyone really seemed to be on their best behavior as much as they could. They certainly appeared in many instances to put on a united front in order to keep everyone's focus on the Queen and her legacy.
I think one of the biggest surprises of the funeral is that we saw such young children, especially Prince George and Princess Charlotte. What did you make of their appearance and sort of their behavior?
Yeah, they were certainly on their best behavior. Of course, it was great to see the older two. I know the littlest guy. We would have been talking about him for decades. And so the children were certainly well behaved. They clearly knew to mind their manners while they were there. We see here in the United States, there are instances where we do see young children at funerals because they do have an understanding of life and death and legacy for the family. And I think it was just really important for them to be there as part of this. We have to keep in mind that every photo that was taken, every video that was shot, that this is something that's going to remain part of history as this family's legacy continues to go on. And it's clear that they wanted the world to see these young individuals because at some point in time, they will be in leadership. As the world continues to live and grow and thrive, we will see these young people here. So with that being said, I think it was good that the children were there.
Definitely. And you see in photos, obviously, Princess Charlotte, she broke down at one point. Kate was comforting her. They walked in with their family. So how did Kate and, Princess Kate and Prince William, how did they act as also comforting and protective parents during this time as well?
One point I noticed that's really stood out to me is when they did walk into the church together, Kate was on one side, William was on the other side, and the children were in the center. And I think that was very symbolic of what's important to them as a couple, that they are there to support their children. And they wanted to definitely show that for their personal family unit, they are certainly unified, and their goal is to rear the children up in the ways of the monarchy.
We've talked so much about this public grief because the whole family was grieving, but it was such a public event. But I think particularly King Charles, it was very interesting to watch him. What did you make about his grief and his emotion throughout the funeral?
I was watching him, and what stood out to me, and I thought about this as just a regular person, you have to think about this. His father just passed away last year, and now his mother passed away, and everything is left up to him now. He doesn't, it's challenging. So you can see, for me, it seemed as though it wasn't the fact that he just lost his mom and his dad in such a short period of time, but also the gravity of the responsibility and the weight of this family, the weight of the monarchy is on him. Of course, he's been very close to his mother all of his life, and I'm sure she has done everything she could to prepare him for this moment. But now this moment is here, and everything is on his shoulders. So I think we saw a grieving son, yet at the same time, an individual who understood the gravity of the leadership that's to come.
I think you make a good point, because when they were singing God Save the King, he got emotional. Several places were reporting that you could see a tear in his eyes. So I think that kind of piggybacks off of what you said. You just understand the magnitude of what's about to happen in your life in that moment.
It's shifting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a big shift, and this is a train that's going, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. And so that's quite a bit, for an individual. And at the same time, your mom, this is leaving. I lost my mom a few years ago, and I just cannot imagine having to grieve with the whole world watching. There were moments where, of course, our family had our private times, but just, I can remember sitting on the front row of that pew. My mom was a leader in our community and very well respected. So there were a lot of folks who were there, and I knew their eyes were on us, yet me and my siblings, we all banded together and did what we could to support one another. And we see this sort of thing, and we can hear this time and time again for so many families. And I think this is what we saw with this family yesterday.
We talked about Prince Charles welling up. I know there were photos of Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, with, one or two tears coming down. But I think from my own experiences, it's very hard not to sort of, in those very emotional moments, just to weep, how do you think they're controlling those emotions?
Well, the thing about it is we only really saw this family for very short periods of time. You have to think about the fact that they have remained behind closed doors. They're behind the walls of the castle and in their homes. And so they do have those moments to themselves where they really can just be a human being. And if they have to well up or bawl or what have you, they've had the opportunity to do so. And so in these instances, they've gathered themselves up. And I think that's what Meghan did in this instance. She gathered herself up and sat, but there's still that poignancy of the moment to say that this is a woman who Meghan clearly said the Queen was always kind to her, was leaving and is not returning. And so that's why we saw this emotion. And so that's why we don't see the real falling out and the bawling and so forth, because they probably had time to do that. We only saw this family for honestly a short period of time.
For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.